Bueno, pues muy buenos días a todas las personas que empiezan a unirse a esta sesión informativa con London School of Economics. Mi nombre es Karen Martínez, yo soy parte del equipo de Consejería Académica y Relaciones Internacionales de Colfuturo y pues el objetivo de la sesión del día de hoy es brindarles a todos ustedes la información referente a esta institución académica. Quiero contarles pues que en todo este mes de agosto hemos estado desarrollando justamente este tipo de webinars para todos ustedes, para particularmente aquellos que tienen interés en estudiar en el Reino Unido e Irlanda y que adicionalmente pues tienen convenio con Colfuturo. Así que los invito a estar muy pendientes de nuestros eventos y de nuestra página web. El día de hoy nos acompaña Nathan Brennan. Él es Student Recruitment Officer de esta institución y nos va a brindar información súper valiosa acerca de esta universidad, de su oferta académica, financiación, procesos de admisión, becas y muchísima información más. También abordaremos información relativa al convenio que tiene London School of Economics con Colfuturo, que consta particularmente de un descuento del 20% sobre el valor de la matrícula para todos los beneficiarios de Colfuturo en programas de maestría y doctorado, y adicionalmente se otorgará una beca del 100% en el valor de la matrícula para un estudiante del programa Semillero de Talentos de Colfuturo. Cabe mencionar que si tienen alguna pregunta, alguna inquietud u observación, pueden ponerla en el cajón de Q&A y la estaremos respondiendo a lo largo de esta sesión, ¿vale? Así que sin más preámbulos, Nathan, te doy la palabra. Thank you so much for being here. You can go ahead and start with your presentation.
Thank you, muchas gracias. Lo siento, solo hablo un poco de español, así que habla inglés for the presentation. So thank you so much for having me today, and thank you all for choosing to be here to come and learn a little bit more about COLFUTURO, as well as LSE and what we can offer you at our university. So, as I mentioned, my name is Nathan, so I'm going to be talking for the next sort of half an hour, hopefully, about LSE, about graduate study opportunities, and how we work really closely with COLFUTURO to help empower exceptional young people from around Colombia to come to the UK and to LSE. As I mentioned, so I only speak a little Spanish. You'll have to forgive my bad attempt a minute ago. So I will be speaking in English, but of course, if you have questions maybe that you feel more comfortable asking in Spanish, I think Karen, would be more than happy to receive those questions in the Q&A and maybe can help me out with some of the translation. So again, thank you for being here, and do please share any questions you might have in the session. Where do I want to start today? I want to start a little bit before we talk about LSE and we talk about postgraduate study, talking about the UK. Now, obviously, everyone who applies to COLFUTURO has such an amazing opportunity because you have so much choice available to you in terms of universities you can choose to study at, but also countries you can choose to study in. We know that lots of Colombian students love to go to Europe, to Spain, to France, to Germany, to the UK, but also to the United States or to Asia or whatever. So first of all, I wanted to start just by talking a little bit about the UK and maybe what you could expect if you came to study at, yes, LSE, but any UK university. And the first thing to say, of course, is that the UK has, I think, one of the strongest reputations of any country in the world for the quality of the universities in the country. So universities, yes, like LSE, but also Oxford, Cambridge, UCL, Imperial. There's a lot of really strong, well-known universities in the UK. And what that means for you is that, if you choose to come and study at a university like LSE, these are universities that people have heard of no matter where you go in the world. People know of the quality of the education. They know how hard it can be to get in and how good the students are. So, you will leave university with a strong degree that is internationally recognized as being worth a lot, no matter where you choose to go in the world. One big difference I would say, though, about the UK education system compared to Colombia would be that there's a lot of time in our degree programs focused on what I've called learn by doing. So coming to study in a UK university, the big emphasis is on you. okay? And your emphasis of being on you and your ideas and your opinions and your skills, okay? So what that means is you'll spend a lot of time in university in the UK working by yourself, doing your own research projects, writing essays and papers. And that the idea is we want you to develop your own ideas and your own perspectives. So the students we love at LSE, right, are the ones who come to class and they say to the professor, hey, you're wrong, right? And here's the reason why. So being a student in a university like LSE is very much about you as an individual. It's a very specialized education system, but it's also one that will really help you develop your own skills and your own ideas. It's not just about repeating what you might hear from your professor or read in your textbooks. But aside from the education system, the other I think there's a few really nice parts about being in the UK, no matter whether you're studying or working, right? And the first thing to say is we are an incredibly diverse country, but particularly London is one of the most diverse cities anywhere in the world. It's also a pretty safe country. So we have very strict gun laws in the UK, so it's a pretty safe environment to live in. You have easy access to free healthcare through the National Health Service. And, even after the Brexit, you can very easily get from London all around Europe. So you can get to London to Paris in 2 hours. You can get to Brussels in 3 hours. You can get to Amsterdam in 5 hours. So it's not only a great opportunity being in the UK to see, you know, England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, but you can also very easily get to mainland Europe and continue exploring as well. And I think the other nice thing to say about the UK education system is, of course, what happens afterwards. So if you come to LSE and you spend a year studying for a master's and you really like being in the UK and you like being in London, you can choose to stay if you want to for at least 2 years after you graduate. So the post-study work visa would give you the opportunity to stay in the UK for 2 years. What's great is that this is a very flexible visa. So by comparison, if you go to the United States and you get a post-study work visa for the United States, if you don't get a job in, I think, maybe 50 days, you have to leave. Whereas in the UK, that post-study work visa isn't tied to jobs. So if you really wanted to, you could just stay in your flat, in your house for 2 years. Most people want to work, right? But you take my point. It's a very flexible visa that allows you to stay, develop your experiences, and maybe stay on for longer after that. Now, obviously, I'm sure for some of you, you might already be familiar with London as a city. But if you're not, I think the thing that I'm keen to start with here is to say that, being on vacation in London is a very different experience to being here as a student. And that's because London is a city absolutely full of students, okay? There are 600,000 students in London. And that's one of the reasons it's actually been ranked as the best city in the world to be a student in, right? By QS, you can see on screen. And that's because, you've got all the amazing culture and history. You can go to Buckingham Palace and Parliament and Baker Street and whatever. But also because there are so many students, because it is such a big student city, everywhere has student discounts, right? Or has part-time jobs for students, or has free events or free student-only nights at bars or whatever, right? So it's a huge city full of students that you can really explore and enjoy, but also get a lot of advantages from that you can't, if you're just on vacation. Of course, let me say that if you do come to London and you do come here to study, you are going to learn this, which is the London Tube map. Um, and just to show you kind of where LSE is based. So LSE is right in the middle of the city. So we are about a 5-minute walk from Covent Garden. So like think shopping, theatre districts. You can get to Parliament in about 20 minutes. The London Eye is about half an hour away. So you're really, really central in the middle of the city. However, I want to stay on this map just for a second because one of the fantastic things again about COLFUTURO is that you do have so many options open to you. Even if you're sat there and you're kind of thinking, I really like the sound of studying in the UK, and I also really like the idea of being in London. You have a big problem, right? Let me show you what the problem is. So within 1 mile of where LSE is, there are 12 other universities. If you look at London as a city, as a whole, there are 40 different universities in London, 40. It's huge, crazy numbers, right? And so the problem for you is how do you figure out which university is going to be best for you, right? And is going to be best for what you want to do in the future and where you want to take your life, right? And whoever you want to be and the things you want to do. So what I'm going to do is start talking a little bit more about LSE. And I want to try and explain, first of all, how LSE is different to all of these other universities, right? And I know that every university in the world will say, oh, we're so special, we're so unique. But LSE actually is. And the reason is because LSE is very unique because we are one of the very few universities in the world and the only university in the UK that is dedicated to the social sciences. So what that means is if you come as a student to LSE, we don't have any medics, we don't have any engineers or architects, right? Everyone at LSE is interested in the same kind of thing, which is basically how does our society work, right? How does our world work? Whether that be politically, economically, in terms of international relations, in terms of government policy, in terms of international diplomacy, legal systems, right? Everyone at LSE is interested in how our world works. And of course, the social sciences touch so many different areas of our lives. And there is so much going on at LSE kind of that engages with society, engages with real world problems we're facing today. So on screen, I've shared some examples of some research from LSE academics, right? Just to give you a sense of everything we do and everything you can study at LSE. So to pick out a few examples, the person on the bottom right of your screen, Nicholas Stern, was the first person in history anywhere in the world who wrote about 20 years ago now a report on how climate change was going to remake the world economy, right? So how climate change was going to change people's jobs, consumption habits, right? The way people travel, the way people live. So you can come to LSE, right, and learn from these world-leading experts about climate change, okay, and about the social sciences involved in climate change. You can also come to LSE and study things like the impact of social media on society. So someone like Peter Pomeranstev is a journalist who also teaches at LSE, and he's an expert on how social media affects big world events. So in this book, which is fantastic, if you have a chance to read it, he talks about Trump's election, he talks about Brexit, but he also talks about, what we're seeing today in the Middle East, right? In terms of how social media communities create groups, how do they shape people's perceptions of who's in their group and who's not in their group? How do governments use social media to influence a population? So it's really interesting stuff. And all of this is just to say that, yes, economics is in our name, but you do not have to come to LSE and study economics. There's so many different aspects to the social sciences and what we do. One thing that is also really unique about LSE is that we are a small university. So in total, we're only 12,000 students. Um, and that might sound like a lot, but compared to some of our neighbours, so UCL is right next door to us, they are 55,000 students. It's huge, okay? So LSE is a much smaller, more specialised community, but also really interestingly for today's conversation is that most of our students are postgraduates. So over half of all students at LSE, 6,000, are postgraduate students. So that means if you're coming here to do a master's or a PhD, LSE is a slightly older community. Okay, so it's a slightly older community of students. And there will be more of you here as masters and PhD students than bachelor's students. Okay, so I think that's really good to think about in terms of where you want to spend this year or whatever of your master's or PhD. But the other thing I really want to stress is how international LSE is. And if you come and visit campus and maybe one day you'll be here as a student, you come off the street to LSE and you'll see this, right? Which is this huge globe right in the middle of our campus on its side. And I love to share this, okay? I love to share this piece of art with you because for two reasons. One, because this piece of art is meant to celebrate what an international community LSE is. So in total, if you come to LSE as a master's student, 80% of everyone at LSE comes from outside of the UK, which means there are more students who grew up outside of the UK than there are students like me coming from Manchester, which is pretty amazing in terms of the people you meet and the languages you hear and the ideas is crazy. But the other reason I love this, right, is because we are so used to seeing the map of the world with the United States at the center, right? Or with the United Kingdom at the center, or with Europe at the center. And it's trying to ask, I guess, this piece of art, but what does the world look like from a different perspective? If you weren't born in those places and have those ideas, how does the world look different to you? And that's really what LSE is all about. We really want the best students from around the world, from Colombia, from all over the world, to come to LSE and bring their ideas, okay, bring their perspectives, bring their history with them. And LSE is very much a discussion between students from all around the world with all kinds of different experiences and ideas. Okay. And so it's a special place. LSE is a special place. I was a student here and I think back a lot about the people I met and the ideas I came across. But what's also, I think, just important to flag quickly is although we are small and we have students come from all around the world, we really punch above our weight in terms of producing world leaders. So, of course, I couldn't speak to this group today without mentioning, you probably already know, one of our alumni is Juan Manuel Santos. We also have Ursula von der Leyen as an alumni, the first president, Prime Minister of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, the current president of Taiwan, the current president of Finland, the current Prime Minister of Barbados. So people really do come from all around the world to LSE. And what's exciting or interesting is that quite often those people then go back to their home countries with the knowledge they've gained and really make a difference in their communities, right? And they are the change makers of the future, right? They are the people who want to make things better and improve. And of course, within this, it is so important to us. Well, our connections in Colombia are so important. So every single year, we have more students who come to LSE from Colombia than we do from Spain, okay? Which is crazy. We have more Colombian students than we have Brazilian students. There's huge numbers of students at LSE who come from Colombia. We have a society of Colombians to bring Colombian students together and share culture, but also, organize events, those kind of things. And in particular, of course, one of the big reasons for this is the amazing opportunity offered to you through COLFUTURO. And now, look, I'm very lucky in that I get to travel all around the world to speak to people like you who might be interested in kind of coming to LSE. Everyone is jealous of you. Okay. When I say to people, oh, in Colombia, they have this program where you can get 50,000 US dollars to go and study at the world's best universities. Everyone is so jealous that you have this opportunity. It's amazing. Okay. So you're really lucky to have this chance. And so it's fantastic you're here to do this research. And we're really keen to support COLFUTURO and support students like you to take up this amazing opportunity, right? So hopefully you already know, but COLFUTURO does give you the chance to come to LSE either for 1 year on a master's degree or 3 years on a PhD program, and they will provide up to 50,000 US dollars to help you fund your tuition fees and your living costs. On top of that, LSE will also give you a discount. Okay, so if you get awarded COLFUTURO money, we will give you a 20% discount on your fees. So the price also comes down. And on top of that, we also have two fully funded scholarships through the Semigiros program, which would mean that two students from the talent seeding would get complete full scholarship for all living costs, fees, those kind of things. We are, in fact, I learnt this the other day, COLFUTURO's oldest partner. We were the first university outside of Colombia to sign an agreement with COLFUTURO, which is amazing. And every year we have so many students who come to us from Colombia through COLFUTURO. So what I would actually really recommend is if you're interested, I know on the COLFUTURO website, there's an amazing resource breaking down all the different students who were selected, who've come to LSE over the years. And it's a really nice idea, I think, to have a look at that, see what other people have studied at LSE, because it might give you some ideas of subjects you might like to study. And I will just say really quickly that you can apply to study anything at LSE. There's only a small number of programs that aren't eligible for COLFUTURO funding. So you can really keep your options open, okay? You might already know what you want to do, but if you're still trying to figure out, do I want to do a master's in public policy, or do I want to do it in international relations or sociology or human rights or political theory? Keep in mind that, you have your options open through COLFUTURO, which is amazing. And we're always so excited to do these events because it is such an amazing opportunity to come to LSE. The final thing I'll say about this before talking in a little bit more detail about scholarships and applications is talk a little bit about what happens after you leave LSE. So hopefully you agree with me, that education is an investment. It is an investment in yourself and in your future and in the person you want to become, right? And when I use that word investment, I mean it both in terms of money, because as we've talked about, right, it's going to cost money to come to LSE, even if you have a scholarship. But even more importantly, this is a year of your life. If you do a master's, it's a year. If you do a PhD, it's like 3, 4, 5 years. So it's not only a big investment of money, but it's an investment of time. And so I think you're perfectly entitled to ask, if I'm making this big investment, what's on the other side, right? What's the return on the investment that I'm making? So to help talk about this, I always like to share this extract. So the table you can see on screen is from this year's complete university guide, and this ranks UK universities by graduate prospects. So in terms of graduate prospects, of course, we mean how quickly people find jobs, the average starting salary of those jobs, and the quality of those jobs. So are they at big, well-known, reputable companies and firms or whatever? And you can actually see LSE is ranked higher than Oxford and Cambridge when it comes to that, i.e., LSE students on average get better paid jobs at better companies faster than students who go to Oxford and Cambridge. And this is true all around the world. In a recent survey by QS, LSE was ranked number 7 anywhere in the world. So out of every single university in the world, it was ranked number 7 in terms of employer reputation, meaning that employers see LSE as one of the best universities in the world to have studied at. And it's in that same category, right, as Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial, but also Harvard, Yale, MIT. Okay, that's the level we're talking about. Okay, the respect from employers. So if you're thinking about your career and you're thinking about, when you return to Colombia, is this going to have been a good investment? We tend to find that LSE graduates do well, after they leave us, whether they get jobs in kind of financial services. We get loads of students who go into government. We get tons of students who work for international organizations and development, law, education, but also business, entrepreneurship, creative industries. So Having a degree from LSE, I don't think limits what you can do in the future. It keeps lots of doors open for you. Okay, at this point, excuse me, I've already spoken for 20 minutes, so I need to speed up. I want to give a little bit more detail, really, really, really quickly, on what the graduate study looks like, and then we'll talk a bit about applications. Okay, so I'm going to try and get through this quickly so we have lots of time for questions. So as we talked about, through COLFUTURO, you are eligible either for a master's degree program at LSE or a 3-year PhD program, depending on which stage of your life you're at. Now, the master's degrees at LSE either last for 9 months or 12 months, okay? So they're only a year. There's a couple of programs that are 2 years, but the norm in the UK is that a master's is just 1 year. Obviously, a PhD is much longer, minimum of 3 years. And at the end of the PhD, most of our PhD graduates will stay in academia and research. So many of our PhD graduates might stay at LSE, they might go to other universities. We get lots of people who've done a PhD going and working in places like the World Bank or in government, right, doing research. And I guess the exciting thing about a PhD is it probably makes you the world leading expert on whatever you've researched and written about. What's important to say is that, our programs, as I was talking before, are very much discussion based. They're very much about you developing your own ideas, your own opinions, your own research projects. So for that reason, particularly on the master's course, the class sizes are quite small. So generally speaking, your classes will only be 10 to 15 people. And that's because they're discussions. Okay, so you're expected to arrive with your own ideas, with your own opinions, and like fight the people around you, debate them, share your ideas. Okay, so it's a lively academic environment that's very much focused on your voice and your opinions. You can study in about 26 different teaching departments at LSE. So there'll be ones there that you expect, like economics and finance, but also maybe other subjects that you don't associate with LSE. So psychology or health policy or methodology, right? So as a COLFUTURO recipient, all of these departments are open to you. But there are a very, very large number of master's degrees at LSE. There's over 200 graduate programs. So what I would recommend doing is after this presentation, if you just Google LSE master's degrees or LSE PhD programs, you'll see a box like this at the top of the LSE website. And what I would suggest is trying to, rather than read through like every single degree, because it'll take you ages, search by topics you're interested in. So to give you an example, I did this yesterday. I just typed into this box development. So if you're on the call and you're interested in, international development, you could type that in, and you can see that there's over 90 programs at LSE that involve the study of development. So what I would do is kind of search by things and topics and areas that you're interested in, and make a bit of a short list of the different courses you're interested in. When you click into these, you can read lots more about the degree and find out kind of how it works. And definitely the most important thing to look at when you're doing your research is this box down here, okay? So each page is going to have something called program structure and courses, which tells you in detail exactly what modules you take on the course, exactly who the professors are teaching, right? What you're going to be reading, what you're going to be researching. So this is a really good place to look to help with the research. But also, if you have a good understanding of the program, this is really going to help when you come to writing your application. Okay. So in a minute, I'm going to talk about applications. Remember to do your research and really understand what the program involves, because you want to talk about that when you make your application. In terms of costs, so of course there is a cost to coming to study at LSE for a master's or PhD, but the programs really vary. Some are much, much, much more expensive than others. But do keep in mind that, as we said before, we do give a discount to COLFUTURO recipients. So you can take away 20%, okay, of whatever the tuition fee is. we'll take away 20%. So it does make it a little bit easier. On top of that, we would recommend that you need around about £1,300 to £1,500 per month to live in London to give yourself a comfortable life. Now, what I'll say is that I mentioned before that, being a student in London is very different to being on vacation in London. And actually, there's lots of things that are available to you as a student that makes life a little bit easier, means that you can save some money. So to give you some examples, everywhere has student discounts, meaning you can get cheap food, you can get cheap drinks, you can get cheap theatre tickets, right? There's all kinds of discounts. But also the visa to come to the UK allows you to have a part-time job. So if you come to the UK as an international student, you can work for up to 20 hours per week, okay? And actually over vacation time, so when you're not in classes, you can work as much as you want. So you can get a full-time job if you want to during vacation. And the jobs that we have here in London pay a lot better than other parts of the UK. So to give you a really quick example, because I'm already a little bit behind schedule, but a quick example. So we employ students here in our office to help us with events and answering emails and things like that. And we pay them £15 per hour. So £15 an hour. So if you think about it, even if you just did a part-time job for, let's say, 10 hours a week, so not a lot, that is, 600, £700 per month that you have just from the part-time job. So it means that, it can really help you pay the bills. It can top up your scholarship and make life a lot easier. Okay. On top of that, of course, we're here today talking about Chevening, but it's all, no, we're not. We're talking about COLFUTURO, sorry. But it is to mention that there are, of course, other external scholarship providers that you might want to look into. So I've already mentioned Chevening. ISITEX is the other one for Colombia. There's a few others out there that may be able to give you some money towards studying abroad. On top of that, LSE also has a number of scholarships and bursaries that we pay for students. And these really vary in size and criteria. So generally speaking, most bursaries and scholarships at LSE are need-based. So meaning that we don't give them to like the best law student and the best economic student and whatever. It's just if you need the money, we'll help you out. So it is possible to, in addition to COLFUTURO, to also get money from LSE if you need it. But again, the amount we'll give, the criteria does really vary. My recommendation would be if you Google the Study UK Scholarship Finder, there is a really, really good website on the British Council that will help you research and find scholarships at different UK universities. This lists every single scholarship at every UK university. So I know, of course, we want you to come to LSE, we want you to apply, but if you find there's some really, really good scholarship that's perfect for you at another university, do apply for them as well, okay? It's really important. So that's where I want to end us now. On the final section is on admissions. Now I do want to leave time for questions. So again, I'm going to try and get through this quickly. But if people do have questions, please do let me know. The first thing I'm going to say before even talking about LSE's admissions is how does this fit with COLFUTURO? And basically, it's up to you. You get to decide who you apply to first. Okay, so if you want to apply to LSE first, get your place at LSE and then apply to COLFUTURO, you can do that. But you can also apply to COLFUTURO first and apply for funding and then apply to LSE afterwards, okay? It doesn't matter. However, what I will say is that COLFUTURO are more likely to give you funding if you already have a place. If you have a place confirmed from university, it increases your chances of getting selected from COLFUTURO. But from our point of view, it doesn't matter either way. Okay. The application windows happen around about the same time. So it's likely you'll be doing both applications at the same time. But you don't need to worry. You don't need to apply to us first or COLFUTURO first, although it can help your chances if you already have a place at LSE. So to apply to LSE, The applications will open in October to start studying in September 2025. There is an application fee, which is currently £95, but it's also possible to request that that fee is waived. If it's going to cause problems for financial reasons, you can request that fee to be waived. However, what is important to say is that the application does mean that you get to be considered for two master's or PhD programs in the same application. So you can have two choices in your application, two master's degrees or two PhD programs in the application. We need a few things from you in order to accept your application. So we will need your transcript from your bachelor's degree. And if you've already done a master's degree, we'll need that. We'll need something called a statement of academic purpose, which is really important. So I'm going to talk about in a second. We also need your CV or your resume to help understand your work history, along with two references. Now, really quickly, in terms of the references, because you are applying to LSE to study, the best people to write your references are the people who've seen you study. Okay, so we prefer academic references. So your professors from university, people you've done research with, teachers you've worked with, whatever it is. But if you can, try and get people who can talk about you as a student rather than an employer. As well, so for some of our programs at LSE, we may also need a GRE or a GMAT test result. This doesn't apply to all programs, but it does include things like economics, finance, and management. So if you are going to be applying to one of those disciplines, you'll need to investigate the GRE GMAT test. And finally, if you're a PhD student, of course, we need to know what you're going to be doing in your PhD. So we need a research proposal in which you explain what your research topic is going to be, which professors you'd like to work with, those kind of things. What's really important to say is that there is no deadline, okay? So for master's application to LSE, there is no deadline. It will open in October, but I can't tell you when it'll close. And the reason I can't tell you is because we approach admissions on a rolling basis. So we are constantly reading applications, assessing applications, and we will close the applications one by one by one by one by one across each program when it's full. What that means is my recommendation would be to try and apply to LSE before January. Okay, so between October and January. The reason I say that is because if you apply between October and January, there will definitely still be places available on the program, but also it gives you so much more time if you get a place, to book accommodation, to sort out a visa, to maybe apply for more scholarships. Okay, so make your life easy, please. Make life easy for yourself and apply with lots of time. So I would normally recommend again before January. Of course, all of our degrees at LSE are academically demanding and we are looking for strong students. And what that means, I've shared on screen. So each of our degrees will have certain entry requirements. And for most master's programs, that means that you normally need your bachelor's degree to have a grade of above an overall mark of a grade, end of the week on a Friday, of above 3.8 out of 5 if you have studied at a Columbian university. If you're coming to a PhD, we will also probably need you to have already completed a master's degree with a grade of 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 6 if you're on, depending on your scale. I've already mentioned that we need a GRE GMAT for some programs. And of course, we may also need to check your English language levels through an IELTS test, a TOEFL test, Cambridge, something like that. What I'll say very, very quickly on English language is you do not need to sit a test before you've applied. So we don't consider English language tests as part of the application process. It doesn't help you and it doesn't hurt you. The only thing you'll need to do if you do get a place is complete your English language test before you start at LSE, okay? So what a lot of people do is they will work really hard on their application and get it sent off in time for January. and then they'll hear back, get a place, and then you can spend the next few months revising for your English test, preparing for an IELTS test, a TOEFL test, and it makes life easier. Okay, so you don't have to worry about that right away. But this is the difficult part. So in the last academic year, we had 45,000 applications for only 4,500 places. Some programs at LSE have a crazy number of applications. So things like the LLM, things like the Masters in Finance, the Masters in Economics, sometimes we get 20 applications per place. So it is super competitive. And so the reason I share that is not to scare you, okay? Because that's absolutely not why I'm doing it. The reason is to say we don't just look at grades, okay? And I really, really mean this. We don't need you to have absolutely perfect grades. Um, those grades that I mentioned before is kind of our minimum expectation of what you need to be a successful student. But then we look at everything in the application as a package. So we look at your grades, we look at your GMAT, we look at your references, everything together. And without a doubt, the most important thing for us is the document I mentioned before, which is the statement of academic purpose. Now, I don't have a huge amount of time. I've already run over how long I was meant to be speaking. But what I will say is that we have lots and lots of information on our website about how to write a good statement of academic purpose. The only thing I'll say now in this session is that this is very, very different to what you would write to go to a US university. So if you're also going to, or actually lots of European universities as well. So if you're also going to be applying for US colleges or universities in Spain or in France or in Germany, what we want in the UK is really different to other universities. The statement of academic purpose for the UK is a very academic document, okay? So at least 80% of it needs to be academic focused. The other 20% can be about your work experience, your CV, your like life story, okay? But it's never the focus in a UK application. My advice would be my final tip, and then I'll shut up and take questions. In your statement of academic purpose, talk about the program structure, okay? This was why I showed it to you before, right? You remember I showed you the program page and you have that box, program structure. Talk about the courses within the master's degree. So, for example, if you apply for a Masters of Economics and you can see on the program structure that you have to do macroeconomics, you have to do microeconomics, and you have to do econometrics, okay? In your statement, talk about macroeconomics, talk about micro, talk about econometrics, because we're not only just looking for smart students, right? We're looking for students that fit on the program, where what you're interested in matches up to what you're going to learn about and what we're going to teach you. So it's not only about showing us that you're smart and motivated, it's about showing us that you are the right fit for the program you applied for. So try and talk about, things you're actually going to learn on the masters, tell us why you want to do it, and be specific. So you can get a little bit nerdy, right? And talk about specific teachers you want to work with, specific books you've read, specifically, courses you're going to take, all of that stuff. I appreciate that was a lot of information. What I'm going to do is on screen now, I've shared a link to essentially receive more information from LSE. So if any of this has been of interest and you would like to connect, learn more about the university, please do scan the QR code on screen and share an email address with us. Just to let you know, we will be visiting Colombia later this year, probably October, November time. So if you scan the QR code, we will let you know when we're visiting, and then you can come and have a chat with me. We can sit down, we can talk about what you want to do, we can talk about applications, we can talk about scholarships. So if you want to connect and learn more about LSE, this is definitely the best way to do it. So I will leave that on screen for a few minutes in case anyone is interested. But thank you so much for listening. I'll stop talking there and I can have a look to see the questions we have. Please feel free to continue to post questions. And as I said, if anyone has questions in Spanish, maybe Karen can help me out. But let's have a look at Karen, am I okay to start looking at questions? Do you want to run through them?
Well, Nathan, thank you so much for all the information that you have given us today. The session was so productive because you clarified a lot of really relevant points. So now we have some questions here through the chat. So David are asking, would the 2 years work visa clock start right after graduation, or could it be postponed a bit? Could I leave for us a year and then come back for the remaining year?
Oh, that's a really good question, David. So in most cases, the graduate visa will kick in straight after you finished your master's degree. So normally, it would mean people stay in the UK after they've completed their masters for those 2 years. Um, I'm not sure if you let me double check for you, David, in a second. While we'll have a look at some of the other questions, and I will double check with you. But I think normally speaking, people would stay in the UK for straight away after for the full 2 years after finishing their masters. Of course, you can go back home, like it's no problem for you to visit back home for a few weeks, a month, whatever. But yeah, you have 2 years after. So I'll double check that, but really good question.
Perfect, Nathan. Thank you so much. Well, Karen is asking, what is the name of the scholarships page? Maybe when you talked about scholarships and options.
Yeah, sure. So I will pull a link for you, Karen, and I'll put that in the chat so everyone can see and you can read about the scholarships we have, how to apply. One of the things that I didn't mention in my presentation was that um, essentially, if you're successful to LSE, we just have one scholarship application. So the way we work is it's not like you have to apply for 20 different scholarships. You fill out one application and then are considered for everything we have at LSE. It makes life a little bit easier, but I will in a second share a link in the chat to the scholarships page.
Perfect, Nathan. Thank you so much. Well, Santiago is asking, is any work experience required to be accepted into a program?
Another good question. Thank you very much. So, the short answer is no. Okay. So, for most programs at LSE, there is no requirement on having work experience. So, we'll get people, who come straight from bachelor's. We'll get some people who've maybe been working, for a couple of years and then have come back to education. But then we also get other people who've been working for many, um, many years, right? And who come with lots of experience. So generally speaking, no. Although you can, your application can be improved if you have relevant experience. I would say the only exceptions would be in courses in the School of Public Policy, where we ask for relevant policy related experience. And also I would say it's common, I would say, for management students to have at least a couple of years experience. But no, there's no strict rules about how much you need.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. Well, Laura is asking now, could I start my application process even if it opens on October? This with the purpose of advising the uploading of documents and formularies.
Yeah, so um, you can. But the actual application page won't go on until the 7th of October. So what I would recommend is you can't sadly log on, and start like building your application on the website right now. But what you can do is start getting everything ready yourself. Yeah, so please start preparing before October. So then when it goes live, and I will exclusively reveal, we've not shared this yet, but we're planning to open applications this year on the 7th of October. So when the 7th of October comes around, you can be at the front of the queue, everything ready. But no, you can't like create the account just yet.
That's right. Thank you. Maria Alejandra is asking, how do I prove financial aid for the scholarships?
Sure, 1 second.
Yeah.
And I'm just actually on this, so before I forget, I am going to post a link in the chat. I've just done that now, to that fees and funding page, so you can have a look at that. So in terms of for LSE scholarship, the way it works is you complete one application, as I said before, that we collect some information from you, and then we will use that information to assess you for every single scholarship at LSE. So one of the pieces of information we ask for in that is how you plan on funding your studies. Okay, so you might say in your application, well, I plan on using this money from COLFUTURO, and then I've got a bit of money saved up, and then my mum and dad, is going to give me some money as well. And what we then do is we will take that money away from how much we think you need as a student, right? And if we think there's going to be a gap between how much money you have and how much you need, that's when we may step in to offer scholarships. So we use it based on kind of the information you give us. We potentially could ask for proof. Okay, so if you are given a scholarship, and we have questions about, if the information is accurate, we might ask for bank statements, okay, to demonstrate that you're being truthful. But don't worry too much about that. Okay, if we need evidence from you, we'll ask. But don't worry too much about it at this time. Generally speaking, we like to trust people. Yeah.
Perfect, Nathan. Thank you so much. Well, Maria is telling us approximately how long does the student admission selection process take?
Yeah. So normally 8 weeks in total. So in between you hitting send on your application and then receiving a decision is normally 8 weeks. It can be a lot faster than that. So if you apply early in the cycle, it will probably be much faster. And if you apply at a peak time, it will probably be 8 weeks or maybe even longer. So maybe you can use that to help factor in that whenever you apply, you should expect to wait 8 weeks before hearing back. So that as well might influence when you choose to apply, because if you want a decision in time for when the COLFUTURO application's open, you're obviously going to want to apply in October, November, right?
Right. Thank you. Well, finally, Santiago is asking, which email can we contact for more questions?
Pause. You can send me an email, Santiago, and anyone on this call. You are very, very welcome. So I will put it in the chat. If you have any questions, do send me an email. If I'm not able to answer you because I'm traveling or away, I may ask one of my colleagues to answer, but you can contact me and one of our team will for sure help you out.
Perfect. And in order to close the session, Fernando is asking if it is necessary to pay the fee, even if one applies for a scholarship.
Yes, it is. So the fee, essentially, you need to pay the fee when you hit send on your application. But what you can do is you can complete a little form on the website to let us know if you're going to have problems paying the fee for the application, which is again £95 this year. So yes, you do have to pay it or submit a request to have it taken away before you'll be considered.
That's perfect. Nathan, thank you so much for talking us about it, the place where we will find social and cultural diversity, a world full of opportunities, and about the university with a global impact. All the information that you have given us today is so valuable, and it's really an interesting destination. So to conclude, can you give a final advice for our students, please?
Oh wow. Okay. Final piece of advice would be, really simply take this opportunity. I really mean it when I say I travel all around the world and I meet people in all kinds of countries. And Colombians are so lucky to have access to COLFUTURO this amazing opportunity. You have so much choice. The world is literally, at your fingertips. So take the opportunity. Of course, we would love to see you at LSE if LSE is right for you, but do your research, right? Find the right university for you and then go for it. So um yeah, we're so grateful to be here. Thank you for having us. And again, just good luck with your research and going forward with life and taking this opportunity. It's amazing.
That's so perfect. Thank you, Nathan, again, and thank you for your time and your support.
My pleasure. It's now 5 o'clock here in the UK, so I get to go to the pub now, which is great.
Thank you, Nathan. Goodbye. We have see you
Thank
in
you,
the next
everyone. Bye bye.
opportunity. Bye bye. Y bueno, a todos, mil gracias por su asistencia y preguntas. Sé que la información que se presentó en esta sesión fue de gran utilidad para todos ustedes, así que pues sin duda la invitación a que sigan indagando acerca de LSI y pues claramente también de Colfuturo. Nos vemos en una próxima ocasión. Gracias.